Hello, 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 and happy Wednesday, and welcome to People Talk Now. I'm your host, Vanessa Herrera, and this is the show where you ask about it and I talk about it. And let's not forget, you guys, that we are constantly, it seems, trying to change the pace out there on what people are calling better days. So yes, welcome, happy Wednesday, good morning, grand rising. I hope everybody's doing good and that you woke up with really good and positive vibes today and working towards your goals. I'm out here by a church by my house today because going on a morning walk and the vibes are really beautiful. So it all goes with what I'm going to be talking about today. So today's topic is basically why it's getting harder to talk about God. So perfect scenery for what I'm going to be talking about today. So let's get into that. Hey you guys, I'm back as promised. So yeah, had a nice walk, had my slice of caffeine and all that good stuff, and now I'm here sitting in my hot chair. Sitting in the hot chair. Anyways, yes, thank you guys so much for being here with me this morning, and welcome to my humble room, where most of my podcasts have gone down during quarantine. I don't know if I've told you guys, but before like COVID and all this, like I just had 2020 just planned so beautifully. I was like, oh, I'm going to be going to all these places, interviewing all these people, and then
coronavirus is like, what?
So yes, thank you guys for being here. And before I get started with all of the information and everything that I want to share with you guys this morning on episode 62, by the way, yes, here on People Talk Now, don't forget to give this video a huge thumbs up and support your local YouTubers and, you know, just people in your community, people that you know, people that you don't know. But if you run across this video, just it would make the biggest difference if you did give it a thumbs up and just support, you know, it means a lot. But yeah, before I get into like the information aspect of like what I'm going to be talking about today, I definitely wanted to share like a more personal story and just go a little more in depth as to what made me go away, what made me come back, what made me a believer. So yes, I know that a lot of you don't really know that. I know a lot of you don't know that part of me that I was ever, even at one point, ever religious, I guess is the term you could say, if that's what makes you feel better. But the reason why I felt like I needed to talk about this was because it's something that I feel like in our world, in our modern world, is just becoming so like taboo, and it's just, if you even bring up the God word, it's like people freak out, you know, it's just like,
get away from me.
So I just wanted to share like my story really quick. So around, you know, anywheres before 20 years old, like I've always been like pretty religious and like, you know, I used to go to church. I definitely believed in God over 100% most of the time when I was younger. And I will go as far as to say that there was a point in my life when I was 18, 19, 20-ish, but 19 to be more specific, where I went on a crusade with the church for about 6 months, and I had this really strong belief that I could really make a difference in people's lives, and I gave up a lot. Like I went on a church, I was deeply involved, deeply rooted and planted into the church at that point in my life, and it was one of those things where I had nothing to lose. I you know, got involved with the church, and we went, and I was like spent probably like 6 months probably away from anybody that I knew, and nobody knew where I was. And this is just a decision that I made for myself. And yeah, I mean, everything was really weird to me at first because I wasn't comfortable, because this was like testing me on a whole nother level. But then we ended up we were in the, like, you know, certain parts of San Bernardino, like the cities out there, and we would go to certain people's houses and we would pray for people. And I remember just witnessing such like sad situations, you know, being so young and like walking up to people's doors and, you know, one that really stuck out to me at the time was we went to this house, we knocked on the door, and a gentleman opens the door, and his wife is, wife, girlfriend at the time, not really sure what their relationship status was, but she was in the kitchen, and there was a little girl running around in diapers, and she just, she looked dirty. She just looked like she was just crying, screaming, and the guy opens his door, and we start talking to him, kind of trying to basically spread love. We're trying to spread the message of God, and the guy was just like, no, like, he's like, God gave up on me a long time ago, etc., etc. Like, he's just like giving us his spiel as to why we shouldn't pray for him and why he just wasn't worthy of love and things like that. And it was just really sad to see that. And I remember me and my friend, we began praying for him. We began telling him that, like God loves all his children, and like he just doesn't leave you behind. And I think over so much time, like, we began believing, we began to lose belief of what we knew all along, like what we felt, like that energy of God. And then we start to like just believe and intake other people's beliefs, and little by little we forget about who we were originally, And I almost feel like this is where this man was this day. Like, I feel like he was so lost, and not only just what I felt, but he admitted that he felt so lost. He felt like there was no place in the world for him anymore. And, he's just started crying. And I look on the ground behind him, and I see syringes on the ground, like, and he was just telling us that he was addicted to drugs, etc., etc. And, just explain a lot about his life. And I felt really bad. I felt really like I just wanted to do so much, But I knew that the best thing I could do for him is to basically find another outlet for him to let out his pain, to like release all that bad energy that, he was putting into other things, basically. And, in that moment, I remember feeling so like powerful. I remember feeling so like there's so much more in this world that we don't know about, right? And I remember me and my friend, we prayed for him. We started praying. We were holding hands with him. We were telling him that basically God had not given up on him, and that he didn't need to feel alone, like, because he never was, And like, I think ultimately, like, believing that you are alone, like, that's the start of you like getting disconnected. Like, when you think like, oh, I'm actually alone, like, when you never are, like, because all of us, we are connected together. Like, that's how all of our energies, everything is connected somehow. And then that was what we were trying to make him aware of, By the end of it all, the guy basically at the end ends up telling us that he really wants to just quit drugs. He really just wants to, like, he really, really wanted to just give life another chance. And we remained connected with the guy. We continued talking to him and things like that, Fast forward to maybe 6 or so months after that, after me being involved for 6 months, one day, I just, out of curiosity, I just started asking more and more in-depth questions about God. And I just feel like at the time, not only was I hurting as a person, but I think as well that I felt like, because I didn't get answers, maybe like that the person that I asked didn't have the answers that I was seeking. And so I remember once going up to our pastor and like asking him things like, oh, like, who he's just like, God created all. And I'm like, who created him? And like, I'm like, so I'm supposed to believe that, someone just appeared, et cetera, just like asking all these in-depth questions and saying like, hey, like, please explain this to me. And when I feel like I didn't get the answer that I wanted, it was so much easier for me to just be like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm washing my hands and I'm done of this. Like, I don't believe in it. And it was so much easier for me to like, the more I said it every day, like the more I said, I don't believe this, the more I didn't believe, and the more disconnected I felt every single time. So then it was so much more easier for me to just go back into a life of just like partying and like doing certain things like drinking and whatever and just being wild. And it was so much easier for me to just do that, right? It was so much easier for me to follow that path versus like the path that I felt like I could have done so much more good in the world if I would have just followed that path. But this isn't a story about me going back and saying my regrets. But yeah, basically that's my quick little spew as to what I felt happened. And I feel like it just made me more and more disconnected every time I just kept saying like, well, I didn't get the answers. And like what's crazy is that you would think that because I was so deeply involved that I would have just gone elsewhere. But because like I feel like since it's been like that long and I'm 34 years old now, and it's like so much different, so much has happened since then. And it's like the information that we get now is so much easier, so much faster than what I was able to get then. So it's just kind of like, if I didn't get the information, I didn't even bother like going and further like researching and like finding out like what was right for me, right? And like I just gave up. I gave up and I said like, that's it. Like he's done with me. He doesn't he doesn't love me. Or but the weird thing is that every time I remember in my life like coming across a very painful situation where I was crying and I'm in tears and I'm just like, the first person I ever thought about was God. And like that was the first person, and like I think now, like me being 3 weeks into going back to church and things like that, and just kind of getting more in touch with my spirituality, aside of just like meditating and things like that, like this goes beyond that. And I told myself like, I don't want it to be weird, and I don't want it to be weird talking to you guys, my listeners and watchers, about it. I feel like this is definitely what we all need more of. But definitely this is something that like now I'm just like, wow, like when I mean like I'm peeling off layers and I'm peeling off layers, like this is what I mean. Like, I mean, I'm peeling off layers, and I want you guys, people that are maybe in a dark place right now, or maybe you don't want to talk about things and it's just so hard for you, understand that, there was those times where I had so much faith that I would just be like, I knew that if I got down on my knees and I started praying and I put all my thoughts and all my energy and all my beliefs into it, that it would happen. But I think because of the way things are now, like as soon as someone doesn't get what they want, or if it doesn't happen, like you're like, oh, I got down on my knees and I prayed, and like the next day nothing happened. It's like, no, because you're expecting. So yeah, like that's just the kind of people that we've become. Like we just want everything right as we pray for it, and we want fast service. Like that's just how we've become as people. We're getting things delivered to our house the next day. We want same day pickup, things like that. We just want it. We want it fast. We want it now. And so it's like, it's harder for people to believe in something that is so much bigger than themselves, I guess. It's so much, easier to not believe. It's so much easier to just not think about those things. And, I think this is why I felt the need to talk about this, because it has shifted my thought process. It shifted a lot of things that I typically on a daily basis don't really think about. And this isn't just about, me coming here and saying like, if you don't believe in God, you're a sinner. No, this is nothing about that. This is not me trying in no shape or form to shame anybody or to make anybody feel bad. Not at all. I mean, come on. I've only been going to church, like, this is like my third week this past Sunday. Like, it's just, I wanted to share and just be very open and raw with you guys about and it's crazy because if I can be like really honest with you guys right now, I remember saying to myself that in the year 2021, I wanted to get more involved with church. Don't ask me why. Okay, ask me why. I feel like I'm always trying to become more spiritual, right? And because I am always trying to not become more spiritual, I don't think that's the right word, but because I'm always trying to become more and more enlightened and more in tune and more in touch with my original self, who I used to be before everybody had their input in my life, is that I remember if I went back so that I can go forward, was that I remember a specific time in my life where religion made a really big difference in my life. But I don't mean religion to be like, oh, like, not like that. Like, not the type of religion that it's just like eat, sleep, and breathe religion. Like, and that's why I posted what I did a few days ago, because I've never personally liked the religious aspect, but I love the unity of people being together in a church, and I love the energy and like the love that everybody brings when they're together and they're in sync. And that energy and unity, that is what is godlike. That to me is like, wow, that's powerful. The people together in unity and feeling together, that's godlike, right? And it shouldn't be weird. It shouldn't sound weird. It shouldn't come off weird, because it does. Then I feel as if maybe there is layers that you need to peel off. There is something that maybe you're denying yourself, right? And I'm saying, like, don't deny yourself. Don't deny yourself love. Don't deny yourself to feel. Don't deny yourself any of those things, because you're afraid that if you say that suddenly
It's just like, whoa, wait, what? You're like all religious now?
no, none of that. It means none of those things. It means that you are getting more deeply rooted and connected to yourself, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, let me share a super quick little science with you guys really quick. Okay, so let's just go up here really quick, and let me share this little bit of information that I actually found. And you're going to be really surprised, actually. I mean, you might be. I'm not really sure if you will. But let's see. Let's see if you are. And if you are, that's okay. If you're not, that's also okay. Okay, so last year, a group did a social research firm focused on religion and public life, right? So they did a social research. I don't know why it's so hard for me to say that. To conduct a survey of 1,000 American adults. What did they discover with that? They discovered that this study revealed that most Americans, more than 3/4 actually, do not often have a spiritual or religious conversations. Sorry, guys. I felt like. So more than 1/5 of these respondents admit that they have not had a spiritual conversation at all in the past year, at all. And 6 in 10 say that they had a spiritual conversation only on rare occasions, right? Going back to what I was telling you guys, like anytime I was in like serious sorrow, anytime I was in serious just turmoil, I was like, oh, where are you? Why are you not doing anything, right? Suddenly that's when I was just like, oh, it's useless because nothing's happening for you right away. So it's like, oh, it's not true. It mustn't be true, right? It doesn't happen right away. Hello. Well, what do you guys think happens when we're trying to make a great change, right? Do you think it's really going to happen all at once, or it's going to happen in little tiny little increments? It's the same thing with your beliefs. It's the same thing with your faith. It's the same thing with your religion, your passion, whatever it is that you are strongly believe in. It's going to happen with little tiny little increments of that. And then you get the big bang, right? Then you get the big reward. And sometimes it doesn't happen in a day, in a week, in 10 years, 100 years. Hell, you might be dead. But then somehow this huge change happens, and it's like, oh, it's because that person from that family 100 years from now, whatever, however you want to look at it, however it makes you feel better, just know that this is exactly what I was trying to say. It's like, it's so easy for us to just not believe in anything as soon as things don't happen for us. We're like, oh, it's not true. Forget about it. I'm done. Done. Right? Either once or twice, 29%, or several times 29% in the past year. And then 7% of Americans say that they talk about spiritual matters on the regular. That's 7%. Okay? Of the 1,000, that was 7%. But here's the real shocker. Here's the real shocker. Practicing Christians who attend church regularly aren't faring much better. A mere 13% had a spiritual conversation around once a week. For those who practice Christianity, I don't know if I was doing that or this. Don't mind me. Such trends are confounding. Are confounding. So it is a religion that has always produced through the combination of spiritual speech and good deeds. Nearly every New Testament author speaks about the power of spiritual speech. And Jesus' final command to his disciples was to go into the world and spread his teachings. You cannot be a Christian in a vacuum. Okay? And yet, even someone who maybe spent their entire life using godlike talk knows how hard it has become to even talk about it. It's like you talk about it, it's like, get away from me. Yeah, no, it's true, you know? But I personally, because I'm always trying to just find peace, right? And how can we find peace? How can we find peace if we're not able to stir up the most uncomfortable conversations within ourselves? Like, how will we ever find that peace? Like, how will we ever find it if we don't stir up those uncomfortable conversations? I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really know. I don't really know, you know? Have you ever felt really frustrated, right? Just bear with me for a second here. Have you ever felt really, really frustrated and you're trying to figure out how to have a conversation with God, and you know that maybe staring at the ceiling, conducting a one-person monologue while patiently seeing if God will listen to you is maybe something that you're not ready to do, right? And you're not really quite sure how to move past that awkwardness because you're like, wow, I haven't done this in how many years? X amount of years. And it might feel weird to you, right? I get that. But let's think about this for a second. Like, let's think about this. So what if you had a relationship where you only talked with that one person when you needed something? Imagine that. Think about that for a second. Like, so you wouldn't learn the sound of their voice, their humor, their interest, their joy, and their pain. You wouldn't have a friendship, but an acquaintance. There would be no hope of moving past the basic levels of friendship because you have a need-based transactional relationship with somebody. And so you're like, well, I don't need to have a relationship with this person. So imagine how, like, all that would be. And I don't know about you, but I want to know the sound of God's voice. I would like to know what that's like, personally. And my kitten wants to make an appearance. Oh, give me a second, guys. Give me a second. Give me a second. We're on kitty duty 24/7 because this kitty needs to grow up healthy and strong. Oh, don't cry. Sorry, guys, had to see that, but kitten is hungry. So I don't know about you, but like I said, I personally would like to hear God's voice. I would like to know the sound of it. I want to have inside jokes. I want to sit in the presence. I want, to hear something when I wake up, something like that, I want to have one of those deep soul friendships. Like, that's what I want. And I think that we know that we're serving some higher purpose, right? But because we've had so many of those transactions, like I was saying previously, where it's like, oh, nothing's happening for me, so you start saying like, it's BS, or like it's not true, right? So it becomes so much easier and easier and easier for you to just be like, I don't believe it, because just like everything else, when we practice certain habits and those habits become like really bad habits, like that's what it is. You grew out of the habit of loving God and loving yourself, maybe to a much deeper level. And say what you will, but I was on that boat. I was there. And so I know that I became very distant. I became very just like, nah. It's like, right? It's like, But here are the 4 questions that we need to ask ourselves in order to move past a transactional conversation and into a deep soul friendship with God, you know? These are the 4 conversations. So, are you ready to hear from him? Okay. Ow, 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 ow. Jeez. Okay. I'll let you go. Are you ready to hear from God? Are you practice listening to God? Are you spending time with God? Are you pursuing a soul friendship with God? So, there are literally thousands of articles, books and conferences centered around hearing God's voice, right? But have you ever wondered what he will say when you do hear him? What will God ask you? So, are you practicing listening? So imagine for a second here, you had a moment where you were actually able to listen to, have lunch with Mother Theresa here for a second, right? And you spend the entire time talking about your thoughts, feelings, and problems, and barely coming up for air. It sounds like crazy behavior because it's crazy behavior. So say when you sit down with one of your role models, right? Let's just say that. Say you sit down with one of your role models and you want to learn and talk about everything and everything you can in that precious time, right? You ask questions and you share your story, but you don't spend the time monopolizing the conversation, right? That's what I'm talking about. So when you engage in a conversation with God, imagine you're verbally tossing a ball back and forth, back and forth. Talking is important, but you must also practice listening. And that's the key thing right here, right? And the reason why it's become so hard and harder to talk about God, especially nowadays in this modern world in 2020, is because everybody's doing the talking, but nobody is doing the listening. Nobody's listening to themselves. Nobody's in tune with their spirit. Nobody's doing that. And so that's why it's becoming harder. It's becoming harder because everyone is getting sucked into this social media Bermuda Triangle, and they're getting sucked into these conversations that have no place, right? They have no place, and they are not coming from a place of growth. They're not coming from a place of God, because this world is filled with evil, and you shouldn't be one more filling on the pumpkin pie, you know? I don't know why I said pumpkin pie. But yeah, I hope that makes sense, you know? So, if you ever battle the what is spirituality, right? Because there is a big difference between spirituality and religion. And spirituality is more like something that's talked about a lot, but it's kind of always very misunderstood, right? So people think that spirituality and religion are the same thing. And so they bring their beliefs and prejudice about religion to discuss about spirituality. Though all religions emphasize spiritualism as being part of their faith, you can be spiritual without being religious or a member of an organized religion. And that's kind of where I fall in. It's like I want to just like move about, but I know that there is a purpose for me. I know that that is God's purpose that he wants from he or she. We don't know what God is. We just know that there is a higher power. And I know that that's what God wants of me. And so that's, you know, where I can move and I don't feel anything. Like, it's when you feel judged, just when you feel like people's eyes are on you, it's when you feel all these things that it's like, oh, then you're not living for yourself and you're not living for God. You're not living for any of those things because you're still being influenced by the evil of the world. And it's just not a fun way to live. It's so what's the word here? It's so draining. It's so just tiring to think of yourself in that matter when you should think of yourself in his image. And, you know, it's like, what's the difference between them? What's the difference? Well, one, when you think about religion, religion is kind of like a more set of organized beliefs and practices, and they're usually shared by a community and a group, right? It's like very just like, this is the way we do things. It's very organized, which is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because we shouldn't be judging anybody. Like, everybody is able to have their beliefs, whatever it is. But as long as that belief at the end of the day it ends with love, and you believe that we should all be feeling things together and we should be in unison, then that's what truly is important here. But, and then when you think about spirituality, it's more of an individual practice where it has to do with having a sense of peace and purpose, right? And it also relates to the process of developing beliefs around meaning of life and connection with others without any set of spiritual values type of thing, right? Unless you choose to. But I just want to say, one way to understand the relationship between spirituality and religion is to imagine a game of football, right? So imagine for a second here that the rules, referees, other players in the field or field markings help guide you as you play the game in a similar way that religion might guide you to find your spirituality. Kicking the ball around the park without having to play or on the field with all the rules and regulations can also give you fulfillment and fun and still express the essence of the game. Similar to spirituality in life. You can do either or both, right? And that's the beautiful thing. You may identify as being any combination of religious or spiritual, but being religious doesn't automatically make you spiritual or vice versa. You get what I mean? Like, I feel like spirituality is so beautiful in the house of God, because it kind of, for me, I feel like it allows me to gain a perspective, right? And the perspective can come from many people. It can come from anything, because I'm open and I'm just allowing that to come in, and I'm not like blocking doors because something doesn't fit my narrative or whatever, right? And it's just so much easier for me to just be like, okay, I'm ready. Because when you really truly want to grow in life, you allow yourself to grow. You open that door and you realize that so much change can happen to you. And for me, like, this is what's happened. Like, me going to church the past Sunday, like my family being together, your perspective changes a lot on a lot of things. And it's such a, like, I don't know, it's like so peaceful. I've just been so peaceful. I haven't had the need to be like going on social media. I don't want to argue with nobody. And I'm not like blocking anybody in like an unhealthy way. It's just like, when you just know that, like, this is where I want to be in my life, and you just become so secure because you finally, like, I opened those doors back up for myself again. I went from like being a true believer to then like a non-believer, and just like I was so angry for such a long time, and then I'm just like, I don't know, as of recently, like last month, I remember saying, like, I want to get more in touch. I want to get more in touch with God. I want to go to church. I want to, just continue on this journey that I've been on of, like, self-improvement and, like, just becoming a better person and a better version of myself, like, constantly upgrading, right? And that was part of my journey. That's part of my process, And, I don't want my kids to grow up how I did to a certain aspect. Like, what I mean by that is, like, there was a point, like I said, when I stopped believing, and I was just like, no, I was like blocking so many messages for myself. And like, that's what I mean. Like, because you lose that, because you start getting that habit of like not believing. So then, like, you block yourself from growth. You block yourself from like messages that are maybe meant for you, and you're just like, nah, because your heart or your mind is just not allowing you to do that anymore, because you just developed this very big, strong habit that you don't even know how to break out of it. And so it feels really good for me personally to be like going to church on Sundays with my family, and just us being together and just hearing like the message from a pastor and just like being able to learn something. And maybe it doesn't happen to you like at that moment. Maybe you walk out, maybe it happens a day later, but you start thinking about it, you start reflecting back on it, and it's just beautiful because it's kind of like just a coach like hyping you up and like giving you such a beautiful message and like making you really think about some of the things that you do, you know. And that's what it is. It's like, because it was like, I think I finally grew to the point where I'm like, I would love the fact that if someone held me accountable and like called me on my shit, right, kind of like that, and I'm like, I'm ready, like I want that, and like that's fine. And like that's what I would want for a lot of you. And like I just really wanted to share that experience, you know. And I'm sure, you know, eventually in the future I can come back on here and like maybe talk to somebody else about their experience with religion or their experience with God, or maybe they have a story that they want to share with me. And I would love to share your story here on People Talk Now. And if you feel like you want to share your story, you know, like reach out to me and hit me up at you know, on my email, peopletalknow@hotmail.com. And, you know, just let me know if you want to share your story, or you want us to sit down and talk about it, and you feel like you're ready to share your story with the world, or maybe an experience that you had with religion, whether it was good or bad, you know, like let me know. And, you know, I'd love to talk about it. Maybe we can change each other's mind, or maybe I can change your mind, or maybe not. Maybe just have a really great conversation at the end of it all. But yeah, so I definitely feel really good about talking about this, you know, because we have to understand that our world, technology has made everything so robotic, so just like on the money all the time. And what we have to understand is that none of it is real, right? What you experience within, like within you, every day when you wake up and you feel certain things, that's real. The love, in the support that you feel from family when you're at home and people are helping you do something as small as like sweeping the kitchen or washing a dish for you, or giving you a ride somewhere, or lending you a couple bucks, or bringing you a coffee from Starbucks, whatever. All those little things, that's real. You know what I mean? But all the other things that are just consuming your thoughts and like draining you of your energy, that's not real. It's not real. So yeah, like I was saying, none of that stuff is real unless you believe it to be real. But no, just it's time for you to start having those conversations with yourself and get more in touch with God, get more in touch with yourself. And I really hope that something I said here today like resonated with you and like really made you think about your relationship with God. And if you want me to talk about this in a future podcast, or maybe you want to come on here and you want to share your story and you want to talk about it, feel free to email me at peopletalknow.com and just, you know, reach out to me. Let me know, share your story. And, you know, so yes, if you really like this video, do not forget to give it a thumbs up, because that's very important, you know. I thought I said that in the beginning of this video, but we'll say it again. So yes, I hope that something I said here today really just resonated with you, and it just really made you think, because, you know, like, look at what's happening. It's some crazy stuff happening in 2020. And, you know, here we are 11 months in together. Okay, together we've gone through this. You didn't go through it alone. We all went through it. We were all hurting in some way. We all worried about things. You know what I mean? We all were sad about certain things. It's like you were not in this alone. Right? And that's evil working against you. That's the world working against you. And it's time for you to just reach out. Because trust me, you're not alone. You're not. That's what the world wants you to think, is that you're alone, but you're not. Okay? So you guys, as always, know that I like to end every show with a word and a joke of the day, because I like you guys leaving my show with a little bit of laughter, a little bit of humor. So, and of course, a new word to build up your vocab. So today's joke of the day is, there was a man walking alone. So there was a man walking along the beach, and he comes across a bottle with a cork in it. The man picks up the bottle and pulls out the cork. A loud roar follows and a genie appears. The genie says to the man, "I'm a little tired today and I can only give you 2 wishes." The man says, "That's okay, 2 is enough. First, I would like $1 billion and a Swiss bank account." Poof! The genie hands the man a paper and says, "Here's the number to your account." Next, the man says, "Second, I would like to be irresistible to women." Poof! The genie turned him into a box of chocolates. That sucks royally. Big time. Because it's like he doesn't even get to enjoy his money now. So it's just like, dang it. And he's going to get eaten by women. Ouch. Ugh. Okay. So, let's move on to today's word of the day. Today's word of the day is reprove. Reprove is spelled R-E-P-R-O-V-E. In the definition of it is to scold or correct, usually gently or with kindly intent. To express disapproval or censure. To express rebuke or reprove. Did you know reprove, rebuke, reprimand, admonish, reproach, and chide all mean to criticize. So reprove implies an often kindly intent to correct at fault. So yes, there you go. Go out and use the word reprove. Use it in a sentence. And do not forget to hashtag People Talk Now. Let me know how you use it in a sentence, okay? Record yourself. Share it. I'll share you on my IG stories because I'm trying to help everybody build up their vocabulary out there and just use new words. Let's use this English dictionary. All right, let's utilize some of the language that's out there, okay? So we can stop saying the same ish over and over and over, okay? So yes, thank you guys so much for listening and watching, and I hope that you had a great time watching my video today. And yeah, if you did enjoy today's video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to share it. Don't forget to like it. And most importantly, do not forget to subscribe right here below and to hit that bell notification so that way every time I post a video every Wednesday, although I feel like most of you know, but you need to share it to people that don't know about me, you will get notified every time I post a video. And you know, you don't have to be alone. You don't have to be alone because my videos are here and we're here to stay and we're not quitting. And I hope you're not quitting on yourself because that just would be terrible. We need you. So don't give up. Get off the couch today and let's get cracking. And as always, have a kick-ass Wednesday. Bye.